Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
We do want to put a disclaimer at the top of the episode that hopefully this audio is listenable and okay because we just finished our Patreon episode recording for this month and it was a little wonky. So, we'll see how this one turns out. Maybe this is a lost episode that is just terrible and we have to re-record and I'm just talking to myself and Courtney right now. But if this does make it to your ears and it's a little off, we apologize and hopefully next week's will be better.
Yeah, I don't really know what happened. I restarted my internet. We've closed and opened the Zoom a few times.
hmm
But yeah, don't know.
Yeah, we've been on like 8 Zoom calls tonight between trying to figure that out and then just having multiple episodes you know, and now it's already 10 o'clock at night and now we're starting this episode. So, oh
Yeah,
boy.
so you guys have gotten a lot of chit chat lately from PB&J Gate. You've gotten a lot of all of that. So we have one update, and then maybe we should just go ahead and get into the episode.
Yeah. If there's nothing worthwhile to say, then I say we just say nothing and just get to it. But we do have this
We
update we
can
want
chit
to
chat
share.
at the perk of the week if
Yes.
it is if we have something to say by then. But
If our brains have fired up and started working by that point. Um, Yeah, we do have a super sad update about a crash that happened in Meigs County, Tennessee. So, a deputy with the Meigs County Sheriff's Office, Robert Leonard, was out on patrol. He arrested a woman, and the next day, I think the car was found first, right? Like they never,
yeah,
like
like
he never
he
arrived back at the
never
station.
showed up somewhere. They couldn't find
hmm
him. And so I think they tracked the car and found the car.
Yeah. And then unfortunately, they did find the body of 35-year-old Tabitha Smith in the back seat. She had been arrested, so she was handcuffed and was trapped in the back seat of this car in the river. And the deputy's body was found the next day. Um, so they did say that he is new to the area. The road that he was driving on, it seems like it just leads straight into the river. Like you see like the double yellow lines
Hmm.
until like just a few feet before there's a ramp that goes straight into the river. So maybe he wasn't very familiar with the area. It was dark. He didn't know exactly where he was going. And there could be something more to this, but it seems like he just accidentally drove into the river. And did unfortunately kill him and the woman who was in the backseat as well. She did have 2 children and he had 5 children. So just super, super tragic all around.
Yeah, and apparently this is a common thing. I thought it was like weird when I first read it, but in Hardin County, Tennessee, at least 6 people drove off of boat ramps
Oh my
just last
gosh.
year.
Wow.
And they say it's super easy, especially if it's dark, if it's
hmm
foggy, if anything. I mean, the picture is literally like you're driving down the road and then you're just in the water. They're
Yeah.
like just little death traps. Just put a gate up or something. I don't know what we can do in
Yeah,
these like small towns to like prevent this, but it was
exactly.
absolutely tragic.
And like Courtney and I talked about just like imagining that poor woman who's in the back seat and handcuffed and so his body was found. He had drowned outside of the car, so he had gotten out, but she was obviously trapped in the car because she was handcuffed. So like you're just literally trapped and have
And
no
it's
way
like
to even
a
try to
police
fight.
car. You can't just open the back seat door,
Exactly.
like there's no
Exactly.
way out. Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, just super sad.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, um, this one's not too sad. It's not
hmm
like a murder crime. And
Yes.
honestly, this was almost a lost episode that never happened because I couldn't find any information. So it's a little different than we normally do, but we just you guys have listened to a lot of hard shit on this podcast, so why don't we just
hmm
like lighten it up a little bit? Um, we thought this was going to be timed perfectly. Well, I thought it was going to be a happy coincidence that this would come out the week of the Oscars. It does not. Um,
We always seem
so,
to miss it just enough.
so, but if you're still preparing for the Oscars, here you go. So, our sources, we have quite a few of them. Um, used a Time article, a PBS article, a biography.com article, a a Business Cider article, a New York Times article, a History.com article, a Barbie Media article, if you haven't figured out what this episode's about, and a Washington Post article. So Ruth Moskowitz was born into a family of Russian Jewish. Oh, I think I forgot to mention this is an espresso because it's so short. So I'll be doing all the
Yes.
talking.
This will just be Courtney. I am along for the ride to learn along with you all.
I was like, I normally say it's an espresso, and I didn't this time. So there
We
you go.
said we are not firing on all cylinders today, okay?
We're not.
We're doing our
Our
best.
computers aren't. We aren't. It's not.
No.
So Ruth Moskowitz was born into a family of Russian Jewish immigrants in Denver, Colorado in 1916, and she met Elliot Handler in high school. He was an artistic young man, and they got married right after high school, and they moved to Los Angeles in 1938. So Elliot started to make furniture out of two new plastics, lucite and plexiglass. So it was kind of new at the time. He started making furniture out of it. So Ruth suggested he turn the furniture making into a business. She was like, we can just like have our own little business and sell it, you know? So she decided to work as a sales force and closed a big deal with Douglas Aircraft among like quite a few other companies. And during World War II, Elliot and a business partner, Harold Matson, started Mattel. So Mattel is a combination of Elliot's name with Harold's last name, Matson. So Mattel.
Oh, cute. Good to know.
I know. We love it when it has like some meaning and not just
Yeah,
found a
that's
word in a
cool.
dictionary.
Like this one sounds good.
So on weekends home from wartime duties, Elliot made toy furniture for Ruth to sell. So he started making just little toy furniture for like dolls and stuff like that. And by the mid 1940s, the business was doing quite well. It was taking in revenues of $2 million, which is like $43 million today.
Wow. I was like, oh, this was a long time ago. So that amount's going to be very high in today's dollars.
Very high. I think that's like a common theme. Anytime I mention like numbers are always really high, then you have to think,
Mm-hmm.
wow, they're like 50 times that now,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
So Mattel borrowed money and proceeded to make plastic ukuleles, toy pianos, and launched a music box that sold 20 million units by 1952. Their company also created the Chatty Cathy, which I didn't know that.
Oh, I did not know that either. That's really cool.
Yeah. So Ruth actually had the idea of creating more mature looking dolls to play with. I think she was saying she saw her daughter play with like a paper doll. I kind of think I know what she's talking about, where you could like put just the clothes on top of it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like it was
Yep.
like a flat
Yep.
paper doll.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, maybe I could make like a more mature looking doll. But many people at Mattel thought no mother would buy their daughter a doll with breasts. They're like, that's not going to happen. So then in 1956, Elliot and Ruth and their teenage children, Barbara and Ken, took a trip to Europe. Here they saw a doll that looked like an adult woman, which was way different from the typical baby doll. And it was a Build Lily novelty doll. I hope that's right. So the character was created by Reinhard Buthen and debuted in comics of German newspaper. I'm actually going to be inserting a voice note here because I've listened to this. I've listened to this a bunch of times. I can't say it. I
It's still
can't.
not coming out right.
So I want to say thank you so much to Lucy for sending me this, and now you're on the
Thank you,
podcast.
Lucy. We appreciate
So
you.
it is this German newspaper.
Bild-Zeitung.
Thank you, Lucy, because we would
Yeah.
not have gotten that out of our mouths.
Bild Zeitung. That's my
Sort
attempt, but she said it beautifully. So
Yes, we're gonna let Lucy handle that. Perfect.
so the character debuted in that newspaper in 1952. And she was portrayed as a gold digger, exhibitionist, and a floozy. She was often half dressed, and she became popular, and they turned her into a doll, which was like a novelty toy to give men as like a gag gift,
Hmm.
basically, where it was just like a joke. It wasn't like for children to play with. It was like, oh, you can have this doll that's in these comics.
Hmm.
Funko Pops before Funko Pops were a thing, basically. She had an exaggerated physique, including a disproportionately large chest, blue eyeshadow, and a blonde ponytail. So, and the pictures are really funny. We'll have to post a picture with the episode
Yes.
because they're funny. But this really inspired Ruth. So she bought like many of the dolls home and reworked them to make them a little bit more kid friendly. You know, maybe made the boobs a little bit smaller and the eyeshadow a little bit less blue.
Just tame it down just a little bit.
Yeah. And after 3 years, Mattel launched their version called Barbie. So Barbie debuted at the 1959 Toy Fair in New York City, and she was wearing a black and white striped bathing suit. And Barbie was the first mass produced doll to be sold in the United States with adult features. The doll was 11 inches tall with long legs, red lipstick, and the bathing suit that we mentioned. They also had a few different like outfit changes for Barbie, and I'll get into it more. Obviously, Barbie ended up having a vast wardrobe.
Really? She did. Tell me more, Courtney.
Yeah. And Barbie took off immediately and sold 300,000 dolls in the first year. So the Handlers decided to take Mattel to the public in 1960. So they kind of had this company, but they're really like, okay, Mattel is like, we're ready to be a big company. And they valued it at $10 million, which is $104 million today.
Oh my
And it was
gosh.
quickly on its way to becoming a Fortune 500. Barbie was a huge success from the start and quickly an icon. So we're going to go a little sidetrack for some Barbie facts.
I love a Barbie fact.
Yes, have a good little. I had to keep it kind of short because I could keep you guys here all day if I did all of them. But so her full name is Barbara Millicent Roberts. We know her first name comes from Ruth's daughter. I couldn't find anywhere where her middle and last name came from, like
Yeah, I'm not
the
sure
reasoning. I did see their son's middle name is Robert, so I don't know if maybe they got
That
it
makes
from
sense.
that. So I don't know if maybe like their daughter's middle name was also Millicent, and that's why they chose that. That's an assumption. I literally can't find anything
Yeah.
at all about the other two names, like where they came from. So she is from the fictional Willows, Wisconsin, and she first sold for $3. The first commercial for Barbie aired during Mickey Mouse Clubhouse in 1959, which I did not know Mickey Mouse Clubhouse was so old.
No, I didn't either. Wow.
Do you think they were singing hot dog, hot diggity dog in 1959?
That feels very 90s. I'm sure that came a little later.
I know. So over
No, I'm
the
gonna sing
span of
that
her,
song for the rest of the night. So thank you.
sorry, I will be too. So over the span of her existence, she has had over 250 careers. So from rock star to astronaut, doctor, paleontologist, president. I mean, this day you have a Barbie everything. But back when she was first released, the public soon wanted like a boyfriend for Barbie, a male counterpart. So they introduced Ken Carson in 1961. Ken was named after their son, Kenneth. So, and I did read that he wasn't a huge fan later in life about.
That's sad.
It's probably because everyone you meet go, Ken.
Yeah, I can imagine
know,
that would get old real fast.
So. But, and I also read that apparently Barbie and Ken have broken up and gotten back together a few times.
No.
Do what you want with your Barbies, honestly. But they also introduced friends and family of Barbie, including Midge in 1963. A year later, her sister Skipper. And they'd eventually introduced dolls named after Ruth and Elliot's grandchildren, too, including Stacy, Todd, and Cheryl. So,
oh, I didn't know those were their grandchildren. Okay.
I didn't either. I didn't know there were so many Barbies. I mean, I played with Barbies, but there's so many variations, like I didn't even know.
Oh, yes. Oh, I know all the Barbie names. I had all the Barbie books. I had all the yes.
Yeah, I figured most of these facts. I was like, Jacqueline's probably all gonna know all this, but hopefully I surprised you with a few.
Yes, you did. For those of you who do not know, my mom was obsessed with Barbies. Like, had every single Barbie. Like, I had all of her like original. I mean, I guess it was only a few years old at that point because my mom was born like 5 years after Barbie came out. But like the camper and like the airplane and like all the everything Barbie. Just
Yeah.
so yes, we like Barbie in this household.
Which I was thinking, I was like, Barbie was kind of expensive, like $3. I feel like in that day's money, like that would probably would have been like quite a bit of money to get a Barbie doll.
Definitely. That's what I was thinking too. I was surprised by that.
Yeah. They did introduce a black doll in the Barbie universe in 1968. But it wouldn't be until 1980 that they had like a black and Latina Barbie doll. So
Mm-hmm.
the black doll in the Barbie universe like had a different name. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
like a black Barbie. So that wasn't until 1980, which I still thought was a lot sooner than I expected.
Yeah,
I would have thought
true.
that'd been way later.
Yeah.
And in 2016, Barbie tried to release more diverse Barbies, called them the Barbie Fashionistas. So they came in 4 body types, 7 skin tones, 22 eye colors, and 24 hairstyles. So
Mm-hmm.
those are just kind of a few Barbie facts. If you have any that you know off the top of your head you want to throw in here, but that's kind of the what I got. Or if you want to say your favorite Barbie, you can do that too. I like stereotypical Barbie, probably because that's probably the one I played with.
I don't even know if I have a favorite Barbie because I just love. I remember though because you mentioned Stacy, and like I remember reading a lot of books about Stacy because she was like the younger one, and it was like, oh, I like
Yeah.
identified with her because she was like the kid because Barbie was like the cool like older person, and like I was like
Hmm.
the same age as Stacy when I was like reading the books and everything. I can't. I'm trying to think if there's any Barbie facts. But no, my favorite Barbie fact obviously is that her middle name is Millicent, which is my child's name. But I also did not learn that fact until like my child was almost 2 years old. So,
Yeah.
which is a funny
It
coincidence,
was,
like
yeah.
knowing so much about Barbie and not knowing that. But those were some good facts. I
Yeah.
thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course. Just so everyone could kind of, know a few.
Yes.
But so we'll go back to the 1960s now. Mattel soon faced backlash from the creators of Build Lily. Again, sorry if I'm saying that wrong. So the German company Grainer and Hauser sued Mattel in 1961, alleging infringement of its patent for the doll hip joint used on the Lily doll. Don't really know, but they did settle out of court in 1963. In 1964, they did purchase the company's like copyright and patent rights, I guess, to avoid further lawsuits when they're doing that.
Yeah.
And in 2001, Grainer and Hauser sued again, trying to get royalties from every Barbie doll ever sold.
Wow.
But that case was eventually dismissed.
Wow.
The company was also sued in 1980 by Jack Ryan, who was a former designer at Mattel. He said he actually created Barbie and named it after his wife. So he's like, y'all are lying. I created that. It's named after my wife. Mattel did settle. And
Hmm.
Jack Ryan later died by suicide following a stroke in 1991. So I guess we don't have a murder, but we do have a death. But
Interesting.
yeah, I thought that was interesting too. But Mattel settles a lot. I think it's probably just cheaper. They probably have enough money that
Oh
they're like,
yeah, I'm
it's better
sure.
PR to settle so it doesn't go to the papers.
Because yeah, that's the thing. Like you're such a big company, like the PR that's getting out isn't worth the money. And again, like the attorney fees and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
It's like, yeah, we'll just pay it and then move on, and it's not worth our time, basically.
Yeah. So Ruth was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1970, and she said the diagnosis left her really unfocused and distracted. So according to Business Insider in Ruth's autobiography, Dream Doll, I did try to get this book because I was like, I will
Mhm.
read it. It is $70 on Amazon. I
Oh
did
my
not read it.
God. Wow. Is it like
Must
there's like
must not
limited
be
copies or
published anymore,
something?
I guess.
Yeah. Wow.
It
Because
was
I would be interested to
$70.
read that, but not at that
I
price.
Me too. I was like, perfect. I'll know more about her.
If you are listening to this episode and you are not currently a subscriber of our Patreon, please join so Courtney and I can buy this book.
And we'll read it and give you a book review. Um, so again, I don't know for sure if this is in the autobiography, but this is what the
Hmm.
Business Insider article said. But she said that she felt like she was never able to like grab a hold of things and regain control like after she took time for her mastectomy. She was like, it just really like threw my mind off. I didn't feel like I could get things back together. So Ruth served as president of Mattel until she resigned in 1973. And in 1974, Mattel acknowledged that it overstated some revenues and income. So they're like, we messed up a little bit. So new
Whoopsie.
managers, yeah, whoopsie. Um, and new managers began to like diversify like the plan after like their plans. And they basically, Ruth and Elliot were completely out of Mattel by 1975. So they kind of kicked him out.
Hmm.
And Also in 1975, Mattel, the handlers, and the company's outside auditors settled 5 shareholder suits that accused the toy maker of issuing misleading financial statements and overstating its $34 million pre-tax income in 1971 by 15 to 20 million. So that's a lot.
It's a big jump there.
To overstate.
Mm-hmm.
Under the settlement, about $30 million was paid to shareholders, and the handlers surrendered 2 million Mattel shares. So this is not the end
Wow.
of future crimes. Not future crimes, but future mishaps by the company.
More to come.
Yes. So Ruth Handler and several other Mattel executives were eventually indicted by a federal grand jury for conspiracy, mail fraud, and giving the Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC, false financial statements for the company. It was a 10-count indictment that charged Ruth and Seymour Rosenberg, who was the former executive vice president, with falsifying internal business records about earnings and sales from 1971 to 1973 so they could influence Mattel's stock. So they're like, they did this on purpose. They were trying to,
Mm-hmm.
get the stock to be more. The indictment also stated that this was done to acquire other companies and borrow funds from Bank of America alongside falling false information in a Bank of America loan application. So a lot of fudging some numbers, to put it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They get real confused with those numbers. They meant to
Yeah.
put this over here, and
They meant to
just
put one
uh-oh.
less zero. They put 2 extra.
Yeah, it happens.
So the indictment also stated that Mattel created fake documents that showed it was making 10 million more in sales than it actually was. Again, a big number, especially when you think about it in like today's money. Like
Yeah,
they were way, way saying they made more sales than they did.
exactly.
And it says that Ruth and Seymour concealed false financial statements from external auditors. And the indictment also named a former Mattel vice president, Yasu Yoshida, a former controller, Gloria Sears Billings, and a supervisor on the company's toy division's accounting team, Paul Ashcraft, on 1 count each for making false reports to the SEC. So those people were all indicted in this. So Ruth originally pleaded innocent, but she ended up pleading no contest. She said she just didn't have the energy to fight it. She was like, I didn't want to. So Ruth and Seymour were each fined $57,000 and sentenced to 2,500 hours of community service during a 5-year probation period. So that's
Wow.
a lot of probation, a lot of community service.
Yeah.
And Ruth would later say it was mostly the marketing guys who'd messed it up and they did the dirty work, but they were not indicted. And she said the mix-up almost sent her to jail. And she was quoted saying, I wanted to die of shame. I had always prided myself on being fair and honest and always valued my business reputation. And she kind of started trying to hide. She would take the freight elevator in her apartment building to avoid stares from her neighbors. She stopped going to the country club that she went to all the time, just kind of became a little bit like recluse because she was like
Yeah.
ashamed. I also don't know because like Ruth and Elliot did not come from families that had big businesses if they didn't know how to run a big company
Yeah,
or
that's true.
they were listening to people who shouldn't have been listening to, I don't know how much
Yeah. How much was malicious and how much was just
not
ignorance
understanding.
or
Yeah.
yeah. Because I mean, obviously like Mattel and Barbie were super successful, so it's not like they like needed to lie about that, unless
Mhm.
like because I mean, maybe Courtney will correct me in a minute since she's telling me the story, but it doesn't seem like anything ever like came to light of like, oh, like this company was actually broke. So it's like they wouldn't really
No.
have a reason to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other 3 defendants in the case also pleaded no contest, and they were fined 5,000 each and sentenced to 160 hours of community service. Ruth did later say she thought the U.S. Attorney's Office went harder on her because of her gender. She thought they saw a powerful woman and wanted to take her down. Her sentence was more significant than the other defendants besides Seymour. I mean, a much different sentence. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
she had more counts. But that is her opinion. I will not say whether that is what happened, but those are her words on what happened. And unfortunately, since most everyone pleaded no contest, there aren't many details besides what I summarized. There's a few documents online. They're like through the SEC, but honestly, they were kind of boring. Like it just got very, very lawyer talk and like into the business talk where I thought you guys might start falling asleep on me. So I summarized it the best I could of like everything that happened. But because there's no trial, no people testifying, no anything like that, that's kind of about what we have on that case.
Yeah. And I think that makes it hard too to know like we said, like what was intentional, what was, getting bad advice, what was just making mistakes, what was you don't really know without having kind of all of those details because they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna plead this down and move on with our lives.
Yeah, but if you were someone who is like a lawyer, super into business stuff, and you want like that super, super in detail, like you can find that, especially if you Google Seymour Rosenberg's name. That is the stuff that pops up when you Google his name. Poor guy.
Poor thing.
Yeah. So I guess maybe not. Maybe he was doing shady business stuff, but oh well. So after her charges, Ruth moved on to another business adventure, which I did not know about this. So as we had mentioned, Ruth had breast cancer in the early 1970s and undergone a mastectomy. So she saw a need for lifelike protheses. That word is so hard for me to say. I don't know why. I practiced it a lot.
That is a hard word.
It just doesn't sound right, but like when I say it. But she wanted to be designed by women for women. So she created Rutan Corp in 1976 and manufactured the Nearly Me. And a team of 8 women, most who were breast cancer survivors, would go to different department stores selling the product. And Ruth would kind of do her signature like strip act is what they would call it, where she'd remove her shirt to just demonstrate that people could not tell the difference between her real breast and the prosthetic one. So it's like kind of like before boob jobs were a thing. It could give women who had mastectomies the allure of their normal breast without surgery and like being able to have that.
Yeah.
Ruth even fit then First Lady Betty Ford with a prosthesis after her mastectomy. So even, a first lady was getting this. And she eventually sold the company to Kimberly Clark in the 1990s. And Ruth used to joke that she lived her life from breast to breast, which I thought was funny.
That's hilarious.
She seems to have a good sense of humor, if nothing else.
That's true.
So even though she did sell the company, she would continue to educate women on the importances of screenings for early detection of breast cancer. And she said that she didn't make a lot of money with that company, but it was a way to like rebuild her self-esteem and kind of do like a passion project. That's kind of how I see it. So Ruth and Elliot's son, Kenneth, died on June 11th, 1994. Ruth told the public it was due to a brain tumor, but there was a lot of speculations that it could have been due to like AIDS-related complications. He had come out as gay to both his parents and his wife. In 2019, a journalist claimed to have confirmed his cause of death was due to a brain tumor. I don't know the legitimacy of that. He said it was like looking at correspondence between Ruth and Kenneth's doctor, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Either way, he did pass away in 1994 when he was pretty young.
That's so sad.
And Ruth did die on April 27th, 2002, at the age of 85. She had complications from a colon surgery that had been performed 3 months earlier. And Elliot died in 2011 from heart failure. And as far as I can see, Barbara Handler is still alive. So, as we all know, Barbie was released in theaters in 2023 and did feature Ruth Handler. If you haven't seen it, go see it. If you didn't like it, fuck off. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So she's played by Rhea Perlman, who's known for Cheers, Matilda, a lot of other TV and film. One thing I didn't know is that she was married to Danny DeVito for like years. Did you know that?
I think I did know that because of Matilda. Yeah, I think
How
I
did I
remember
not know
reading
that?
that.
I don't know how I didn't know that. But I was shooketh. Guess I just don't pay attention to people's spouses enough and celebrities. But um, so in the movie Barbie, she first appears in like a 1950s style kitchen and Mattel headquarters. Later, she does reveal she's Barbie's creator and says, I am Mattel, at least until the IRS got me, which is kind of a little, kind of also how inspired this episode was on Girls
Hmm.
Weekend, rewatching Barbie. And I was like, hey, maybe I should do that. Didn't realize there was so little information.
Yeah, we were hoping to uncover some juicy information and we got a little bit, but mostly,
Yeah.
kind of had to
Not
skim the surface, unfortunately.
very much like a white collar crime that wasn't even
Hmm.
like it was a little serious, but obviously the company is still doing fine.
Yeah.
So Greta Gerwig was said that she felt it was essential to include Ruth, obviously because she was a creator, but also because Ruth created Barbie and named it after her daughter. So
Hmm.
Barbie is a movie partially about like the mother-daughter relationship, and she said like Ruth chose to name her creation after her daughter, and that is kind of what helps tie in this like mother-daughter relationship. Like it
Hmm.
couldn't have as strong of an element as this if like, we didn't include Ruth. Like she felt it was very
Yeah.
important, and I feel like Ruth is kind of like the I don't want to say guardian angel, but she's kind of like the voice of reason and is like helping,
Hmm.
Barbie be like, you can be whatever you want to be. Like, you go out into the world. Like, I created you, but you get to choose who you are and like what you want to do.
Hmm. Yeah. Very symbolic.
Yes. So that is the story of Ruth Handler and her crimes um, with Mattel and her business. Yeah, unfortunately, not a lot of like juicy details. And I feel like
Hmm.
if I got too much into those SEC documents, we'd all fall asleep. But unfortunately, a little bit shorter of an episode. Not as much, but we made this joke in the Patreon. February is a short month, and we're ending it with a short episode.
Exactly. It all ties in. But no, I still found that very interesting. And hopefully you guys liked something a little more lighthearted that, you still had the crime in there. We're not solely a murder
Mm-hmm.
podcast, just a crime podcast. So you had some crime, but you got to learn some Barbie fun facts. And I mean, it seems like Ruth really was like a very genuine person,
Yeah,
from,
yeah.
what I
So
can tell, obviously.
yeah, I hope that I don't feel like anyone that I know of is saying like she's a horrible person, she should be
Hmm.
canceled. I feel like
Yeah.
she went on and did stuff. It's like
Hmm.
she may have fucked up in her business, but it doesn't seem like she was a horrible person.
Yeah. Yeah. Doesn't
So,
seem like she was out to get anyone or, you know.
yeah.
anything like that. But yeah, thank you for this espresso, Courtney,
Yeah.
and for sharing this lovely
And hopefully
information
you
with
guys found it
us.
interesting and let us know if you have ones like this where it's like
Yeah.
crime adjacent. We can call it crime
Yes.
adjacent,
Yes.
like there is a crime that occurred. It's not, you know, but it was interesting. I liked
We
researching
need
it.
these lighthearted ones too. Okay, so
Yeah.
hopefully you guys also do.
Yes, at one point I had my computer open and Kevin goes, "Why are you researching Barbies?" I was like, "Don't worry about it."
Don't ask any questions, okay?
He was very
Um,
scared, I assume.
Probably. He's like, okay, I'm just gonna let you do your thing. Speaking of Barbie, kinda, but speaking of dolls. So I was listening, I already told Courtney this, but I gotta share it with everybody. I was listening to the That's Messed Up, which is an SVU podcast, and they were talking about how I think it was their producer had just had a baby or something, and one of the hosts was like, "Oh, I need to see if they make like little like baby podcasting equipment because like Courtney got Millie like a little like baby like dumbbell and a baby like Apple Watch and those kinds of things that like hobbies that you can get little things for kids." So she's like, "Oh, I need to see if they make like baby podcasting equipment." So I was like, "Oh, do they?" So I'm like looking it up. I couldn't find one for babies, but I found like a whole like American Girl doll like podcast recording setup. So like they each have like headphones and a mic and there's like a camera. And I was like, "Courtney, this is the cutest thing I've ever seen."
Yeah.
So I probably just need to go ahead and get that now because they're probably not going to make it anymore by the time we're in the American Girl doll era. So I should probably just get that and hang on to it. But I'm ready for that. I can't
Yeah.
wait.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, that being said, Courtney, keep it even more lighthearted. What is your perk of the week?
So, my perk of the week is every year Kevin and I say we're going to do this and we always don't. So, but we actually did it this year where we're trying to watch the majority of the movies that are nominated for Best Picture for the Oscars. So
Oh, nice.
normally we'll watch one or two, but this year we've watched 5 of the 10. So we're halfway.
Wow.
And we have like another week or two to like maybe get another one in. So originally the movie I wanted to watch, you had to pay $20 to rent it. And in this day and
Ugh.
age of streaming, I refuse.
No,
And so
absolutely not.
we found the movies that were on streaming. And so I
Mhm.
chose one and I didn't really know much about it. I hadn't heard much about it. It was called Past Lives. And my God, how I loved this movie. Like,
I haven't heard of it.
I hadn't either, but it's
Mhm.
basically it's like a Korean American film. So it's a
Mhm.
lot of like they speak Korean in it, but they also speak English, which was hard because we couldn't have the subtitles on because then it would be like so and so is speaking and go over the
Yeah, yeah.
subtitles. But a lot of it was in Korean, so it wasn't too big of an issue.
Mhm.
But um, it's about these two kids who are like 12 years old who are like best friends, and then the girl like migrates. So she goes, I think, to like Canada or whatever. Like she ends up in the US, but basically are separated and then they like find themselves like 12 years, find each other 12 years later, and then another 12 years later, like find each other again, basically. So
Mhm.
it's kind of one of those, but like it just took me on journeys like I wasn't expecting, and it was so beautifully done. Like
Mhm.
the like writing was so good. Just so
Mhm.
like literally like after the movie I just sat there and Kevin was like, "Are you?" I was like, I just have to sit here and process." And I even cried a little bit. I was like just thinking about it
Yeah.
like crying. Like it was
Yeah.
just so beautiful. And I don't think it's going to win Best Picture just because of what it's up against, but it is
Mhm.
nominated for Best Original Screenplay, which
Mm.
last year Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was my favorite movie last year, won. So I'm like,
Mhm.
let's
Like, here
hope
we
this one
go.
wins. But yeah, it's this woman's like writing and director debut. It's her first movie,
Wow.
and
Mhm.
it was sweet, and
That's amazing.
I'm still thinking about it. Like
Well, I have
it
to check it out for sure. You sold
it's
me.
on Showtime. It's only
Okay.
like an hour and a half. Like it's not a super
Mhm.
long movie. Um, I don't know. I truly, truly thought it was beautiful. And the
Mhm.
conversations had in it were just beautiful. Like
Yeah.
it was so good. Anyway, that is my pick of the week. Is everyone please go watch that. And if you've watched it, tell me what you think. Because maybe I'm like biased, but it I don't know, something about A24, that studio just makes films I love, apparently,
Mhm.
because Everything Everywhere All at Once had the same like impact on me where I kind of just
Mhm.
still think about it like frequently. So
Mhm.
absolutely loved it. Kevin liked it. He was like, "You made a good choice. This was a good movie." Like we both
It
really
sounds really
enjoyed it.
good.
So
Mhm. Nice.
yeah, so that is my perk of the week. Jacqueline, what is your perk of the week?
So my pick of the week is that my newest niece was born this week on Valentine's Day. So love to have a little Valentine's Day baby in the
Yeah, little
family.
Valentine baby.
Yes, and she is absolutely adorable, just the cutest thing. So very
She
excited
is
to
beautiful, and I don't say that a lot about newborns, but that baby
no,
beautiful.
she is like a lot of newborns. You're like, oh yeah, no,
It
this
takes them a
baby
while
is
to find their
gorgeous.
features most of the time.
Yes.
Like, you know, my sister will say it. My niece, I love her. She's the most beautiful kid in the world. But sometimes you look at them when they first born and you're like, oh, I don't
I
remember
know
you looking like that when I
that's
look
what I told
back.
Andrew. I was like, oh man, she way prettier than Millie was when she was a newborn.
Yeah, it's like the newborn, they're just like finding those features, but oh man,
Exactly.
she found them. She
She
found them in
yeah,
the womb.
she came out ready to go. Yes, she is absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, just super excited to welcome her to the world. And Millie got to hold her, and she's very jealous. So we'll see how that goes. But
Oh no.
she did not like that her pappy was holding the baby. And she kept saying, "Can you put Braylon in her crib now? Can you put her in her crib
Oh
now?"
no. Well, at least,
So
it'll give her some
it'll be good
some
for her
it'll be
for
good for
sure.
her to share that attention. Because I guess she has
Yes.
been like the only other like grandkid. Well,
Who's like here? Yeah.
she's like the youngest of them all.
Hmm.
So it'll
Yeah.
be good for her for whenever you guys decide to have baby number two
Yes.
to get some of that jealousy out.
Get some experience and having another child around. Um Yeah, and I think once she's old enough to like play with her, it'll be a whole
Yeah.
different story. But right now it's just like, but who's this thing coming in here?
Yeah. What's happening here? Wait a minute.
But yeah, that is my perk of the week. And then also just the fact that we got to like meet her the day that she was born and didn't have to like wait for like our next trip up here, like whenever that
Hmm.
was. Like she was born at like 7 a.m. and like 5 o'clock on the dot, we're like scrambling in the car, like go, go, go.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is my perk of the week, our little Valentine's baby.
Yeah. So let us know your thoughts on this episode. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you have any other like recommendations that are similar to it? Because I do think it's fun to have a little nice like palate cleanser episode every once in a while. We won't
Hmm
do it all the time. We won't turn into a podcast that like never talks about crime or anything like that. But it's still fun to like throw these in.
Yeah,
Um, you can find us everywhere in the show notes. You know where we are. We're on
you
all the
know.
platforms. It's Caffeinated Crimes. Just Google it. You'll find it.
Yeah.
But the most important platform that you definitely need to find is
Yes.
patreon.com/caffeinated crimes, where we talked about a bonus. It comes out Thursday.
Hmm
It is about accidents that turn into laws. So
hmm
our favorite thing to do over there. And then you also can get a pin and sticker. You can get ad-free episodes, Discord access. There's just a lot of perks over there that are really great. So please go check us out over there.
Yes, and as always, any 5-star reviews that you can leave us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, if you can give us thumbs up on YouTube, anywhere that you're listening, if there's somewhere that you can rate us, it is much appreciated. Let us know what you like. If you don't like something, let us know that privately. You don't need to put that in a review, just
No. What
only
I
good in
like
the
to say,
reviews,
if you
please.
want to give a 1 star, come to us and talk to us. If it
Yes.
is something that cannot be resolved, okay, but maybe we can change your mind.
Yes. Yes. So
Probably
please do
not, but
that. We
just
would
be kind.
appreciate it. Just be nice to us. We have feelings.
Yeah. But in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.